What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well today and being safe out in the world. This is Raphael Garcia here for episode number 55 of the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to check us out today. I have a couple of different topics to talk about, but before I do that, as always, I want to jump in and say thank you for the listeners taking the time to check out this show, whether you check it out right when I drop it or a couple days later. Either way, thank you for doing so. Please be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Take this content, put it all over your social media channels, let your friends know that you listen to the Let's Talk Wrestling podcast because we appreciate the time in you doing so. You can find this podcast over on such channels as Anchor, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and that is it. I think I said Spotify already, so there's as well. You can check us out too on YouTube as well at MMA Ratings. So be sure to catch our content out on all of these platforms. Tonight, I wanted to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to talk about WWE content from this week, their earnings call that was today. I also wanted to talk about. I didn't watch any AEW content this week. I need to do a better job about that. But I did not watch any AEW content. But I do want to talk about that piece that came out on Kenny Omega and his frustrations with the booking around the women's division. I'm talking on that quickly, and I'm also going to talk about Dark Side of the Ring, the newest episode, the assassination of Dino Bravo. That was this week. That was yesterday, I believe it came on. So I'm going to talk about that pretty briefly as well too. So let's start with some WWE content where we had Monday Night Raw and NXT. And Monday Night Raw was a pretty solid show. The ratings didn't show that. I think they did 1.8 on Monday, but it was a pretty solid show. We're going to touch on some points there. Drew McIntyre as the champion, I think he continues to look good in that space. I feel like he's becoming very comfortable as the main draw on the show, and I kind of say draw in air quotes right now, but he is clearly the guy that they're pushing to the forefront, and he's able to have his personality shine even without there being a crowd there. And I think that that really is important to me because I believe that that's really going to translate when we get back to the point where we are having live shows. He was over before we went into this lockdown slash quarantine slash no one's social distancing stage of 2020. But he is looking like he's becoming more and more comfortable as a champion. He's really looking like that chosen one. I believe that's what not Dana White, and what Vince McMahon called him more than a decade ago, or was it about 8 years ago? So he's looking good in that role, and he's been feuding with Zelina Vega and her crew, and I love their interactions. I love that back and forth. I tweeted out a quick snippet of her promo on him while he was in the ring in their little quick 2 to 3 line commentary. But he's feuding with that group, and while I like that because Zelina's all over the show. Her, Andrade, Angel Garza, and Austin Theory, they are all over Monday Night Raw the last couple of weeks. And while I like that, because it's big for them, I hope that they're not jobbed out consistently. This week they won, no, they lost 2 matches. Angel Garza won. No, yes, Angel Garza lost, and Austin Theory. No, Angel. Wait, excuse me, back up. Angel Garza lost to Drew McIntyre. Andrade won, and Austin Theory lost to Aleister Black. Yeah, I'm going to touch on all 3 of those matches. But I just hope that he doesn't bury this group, or he did not. I don't like to use the term bury. Let's not do that. I hope that they just don't get beat repeatedly over and over again, especially with Andrade being the U.S. champion. They could be doing something different with him and kind of building that group up and making sure he stays protected as a champ. But we're living in a time where they have limited resources right now, so that's part of the problem as well. Let's hope that they don't burn them taking losses too soon. But I mentioned Austin Theory, and he had a match against Aleister Black, and this is probably the best that Theory has looked on the main roster. And I'm actually going to include NXT in that as well too. He hasn't looked the greatest there. I like that match he had against Tyler Breeze a few weeks back. I think that was a good match. But outside of that, I mean, he looks the part, and when I say looks, I mean like physically, he looks the part. But he just hasn't really translated into the person I am assuming or anticipating him to be. But this was a pretty solid match for him, and he looked good in what he had to offer on Monday. I really liked what I saw from him. He took the loss there to Aleister Black, and with him out there in that match with theory, it gave them some opportunity for him and Zelina to interact, and it was, and they stayed in character, of course. But for those who somehow do not know, they are a married couple, so it's pretty funny to always see those moments when they get to interact together. We got Shayna Baszler as well. I think the enhancement talent she faced is India Artwell. She's an NXT roster member, but she got crushed, and they continue doing the spot where Baszler is ending matches with the arm stomp, simulating that she's breaking arms out there, and then she assaulted Artwell after the match with the ladder, putting her arm in between the ladder and smashing it against the steel steps. So I like what they're doing with Baszler. Yeah, it's only going to be enough to kind of keep the boat in motion for now. I don't think she's going to win the Money in the Bank this weekend, or is that next weekend, I believe. I don't think she's going to win the Money in the Bank. I think that's going to be Sasha Banks. I don't think she should win the Money in the Bank right now. I think they should keep her just beating people up and let her continue to build up steam. But she shouldn't be back in the title picture immediately, or back in the match immediately right now. Just my opinion, even though I love Shayna Baszler. Then we got Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, more of that tag team, and this is probably the one thing in WWE that's really exciting me right now, because there's so much that they can do with this team. I don't want them like rocketed right to the tag team title picture. I want it to be a slow burn, but I do want them to become champions. Just sitting here thinking about it right now, this team reminds me of the Paul London and Brian Kendrick team from, was that 15 years ago, where they were tearing it up. I think they were tag team champions for a year or so. I'm going to pull that up. Let me go over the cage match. Paul London. Let me see when that was. Sorry about the dead air while I look this up, but Paul London's only 40 years old right now. He and Brian Kendrick, they were two-time tag team champions for a combination of 331 days. That doesn't include their world tag team title reign that they had as well too, but they held that title from January, they held that title in 2006, um, all the way up to 2007. I mean, that's pretty amazing there. They held it for more than a year. So I was a fan of those guys. But this team of Cedric Alexander and Ricochet reminds me of that group. They remind me of someone that can go in there, put on great matches, and can really get over. They already have matching gear. They dropped Cedric's theme music, and they're coming out to just Ricochet's theme, which I think is important. So I hope that they do something with them long term, and not just have them going through the 50-50 booking phase where they're winning and losing matches. They lost that match to the Viking Raiders last week, or maybe the week before. So let's hope that they continue to win matches and don't get put in the 50-50 round. They defeated Shane Thorne, who was a part of TM61, and Brandon Vick, who was obviously a powerhouse that they want to get over. I really don't care too much about those guys. The Razor's Edge to the Hurricane Rana looks scary as hell. But outside of that, I'm really excited for this team. I hope they continue to get some wins. A team I think that they should break up, though, is the Kabuki Warriors. And they had a segment there where Kyrie was going up against Nia Jax for the second week in a row. And of course, Kyrie gets squashed again. And there was a really scary spot where Nia Jax threw Kyrie into the not the cage, into the ring turnbuckles, like a buckle bomb from a choking position. And the way she um, kind of folded up at the bottom of when she hit the bottom turnbuckle looked really bad, along with her moans and stuff like that. But Kyrie's a fantastic seller. It looked like she was really hurt. And Nia's been getting run through the coals on social media ever since, basically about how reckless she is, and her reactions to it don't really help. But again, she doesn't give a fuck. She's made that clear as day. She doesn't give a damn about anyone or what anyone really has to say about her, so that's a good thing. But I wrote about this. It was published today, but I am proposing that they break up the Kabuki Warriors. I would like to see Kyrie have her own run as the babyface that we all know she is. Have her run against a nasty heel Asuka, because she's consistently in the women's title picture, and I don't think she needs to be right now. They're not going to put the belt on her. They have it on um, Becky Lynch. They're not going to put the belt on Asuka. She didn't even get like a dominant or a strong performance against Shayna Baszler when they had her in the Elimination Chamber last month. So I think it's time that they break that group up and they let Asuka be a nasty heel on her own, like the Kana, I think that was the character's name, that she used to do in Japan when she was just beating people up and she had like the fake blood coming out of her mouth and all that stuff. I would like to see that character come back and let her just beat the living shit out of as many women as possible, but start that feud with Kairi Sane because that will help Kairi become a babyface that she really is. I mean, she's a Mae Young Classic winner. She's a former NXT champion. She can go. She can do anything that anyone else in that ring can do. We know she's one of the best workers on the women's roster, and I would love to see her get some shine and just to get into a position where she's really looked at as a big name within that women's group. Right now, she's only being used to lose matches that she loses matches to whoever Asuka is feuding with. And when I was writing my piece, I looked back through her cage match record as well, and it's been the last singles match she won was against Peyton Royce back in April of last year when Peyton Royce and Billie Kay were the women's tag team champions. So now that they got the titles off of the Bookie Warriors, they really need to do something with them, and I hope that they split them up and cause a feud between the two. There's rumors though that Kairi Sane is supposed to be leaving because her fiance works for New Japan. So, or is that? Let me okay, hold on. Io Shirai is the one that has a fiance. Kairi Sane just got married. I can't remember which one of them their partner lives or works with for New Japan, but that's the rumor why one of them are. There was rumors about both of them being upset. Io was more upset wanting to leave. I think Kairi wanted to leave because her husband or her fiance now her husband is there. So I'm not really sure which story was accurate about both of them, but let's see what happens. I hope neither one of them leaves. I think that they're two of the better women in professional wrestling today. What else did we get? We got Bobby Lashley and Lana. We got that segment, and I hate that. I hate this so much. I've written about it. I've said it time and time again on this show. I hate everything about this. Bobby Lashley should be one of the nastiest guys on their roster. He's fought more MMA matches than Brock Lesnar. He's talking about doing bare knuckle boxing. He was training to prepare for the Olympics. He won some wrestling championships, like kind of minor, not NCAA, but he's won wrestling championships. They got while he was in the military as well too. The dude's legit. He looks legit. Like let that dude shine. But they keep putting him in segments like this where he's flipping tires and shit like that with Lana there, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You have the guy. He could be booked the same way Brock Lesnar was booked for so long, but you would have him there for the whole time. I would much rather see him as a nasty heel in the main event picture against Drew McIntyre instead of Seth Rollins. I would be okay with that because we know Seth is going to lose, and no one wants to see how to put back on Seth right now anyway. I would rather see something different. And this Bobby Lashley Lana segment just reaffirms the fact that he's just being horribly misused on that roster. We got a great match between Apollo Crews and MVP, and MVP is continuing to put people over. He put Seth over, he put Drew over, he now put Apollo Crews over, he put Ray over since he's been back. I mean, he's just going out there doing a job, and I love it. I would like to see him paired with Ricochet and Cedric as their manager, but that's something I could probably write about another day. MVP comes out there, and I think he messed up his segment because he forgot Apollo Crews' name, and he turned it into oh, I didn't know your name because you're not important type of thing. But I think he really forgot this dude's name. But it was still a great match. I loved when MVP was hitting him with the forearms over the face, the cross faces, and he was talking junk to him. He had one good line where he said, "You're NXT good, but not Monday Night Raw good." So I think that was a pretty good line. MVP's a great talker. Cruz gets the win though with the toss powerbomb. I think that was a good showcase for both of them. Cruz is now in the Money in the Bank, and I wonder if he's really benefiting from being available to get out there and wrestle because he's put on some great matches over the last couple of weeks. He had that fantastic match with Aleister Black, I think 2 weeks ago, where they went like 30 minutes. It was a fantastic match, and it's probably worth going back and watching one of the better matches that they've had on WWE Air over the last few months, even before coronavirus went out of control. We have Ruby Riott versus Liv Morgan. This was a good match too. I knew Liv was going to get the win, obviously, clearly, because she's the one that they're building up. It sucks that neither one of these women are in the Money in the Bank match. It really does suck. They're giving us more of the same. Ruby lost to Shayna Baszler. No, who did Ruby lose to? Ruby lost to who did Ruby lose to get not to be out of the? Ruby lost to Asuka, correct? Liv, I don't think Liv Morgan had a qualifying match. So yeah, there's that. But it really sucks that these two women are not in the Money in the Bank ladder match. They could have flushed this feud out between the two of them and figured out a way to keep it going a little bit longer. They mentioned a lot about Sarah Logan, and you know Sarah was one of the individuals that was released last week, and they mentioned her name a lot. Ryan Satin was talking about there's going to be someone that's going to be brought back, and everyone's really pointing at Sarah because of the fact that she was mentioned so much this past week. And I hope they also bring back Drake Maverick. We'll talk about him when we get to NXT. But there's more of a story to be told with Sarah Logan, Ruby Riott, and Liv Morgan. I hope that we get that opportunity to do so. Then we got the match between Rey Mysterio and Buddy Murphy. This was as good as we thought it would be. I don't know if Rey really dislocated his finger. I haven't heard anything about that, but it was a great little breakaway to make it look like it was real. Rey picked up the win, and now he's in the Money in the Bank. And this is another one that surprised me too. I definitely thought they were going to put Buddy over here, and I think it would have given Murphy would excel in that match. And I think Murphy's more the type that would probably look better if it was a traditional, in air quotes, Money in the Bank ladder match, but since they're doing it at WWE corporate headquarters and they're going to have them going up the actual stairs, let's see how this plays out. But I would like to see what's next in store for Buddy Murphy. But Rey Mysterio gets the win. We have a segment backstage with Zelina, Charlene, and Angel Garza. Only reason why I bring this up is because Charlie Caruso continues to play up that she has a crush on Angel Garza, and I think that looked good. Andrade versus Akira Tozawa. Again, Tozawa's another one of those guys like Apollo Crews who's been leveraging this opportunity because he's looked good. He's had some good matches on NXT. He had another good match here with Andrade. He got caught with a hammerlock DDT off the top, which made Andrade look strong. So everything really sold very well here. And I didn't take any notes on it, but Drew McIntyre defeated Hector Garza, Angel Garza in the main event there. I don't really remember too much from that match. So let's talk some more about NXT, which was on Wednesday. Now, we were originally supposed to get a match between Velveteen Dream and Finn Balor, but something happened according to WWE social media, something happened to Finn Balor backstage and he was taken off off the card. Obviously that means something has come up, probably health-wise, and they're monitoring everybody, so they're making adjustments to these cards on the fly. It's just unfortunate. I don't want to call it too much of a bait and switch, as they've done in the past, but this is an unfortunate one due to the times that we're living in. Instead, we got what was supposed to be Velveteen Dream and Keith Lee versus Undisputed Era, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. We got another tag team match with Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Shotzi Blackheart in that tank thing that she rolls out in, I love it. I'm giving it the kiss of appreciation. I love it all day, every day. WWE needs to take that, make little toy versions of it. I can see kids rolling around at live events with it right now. I love it, every bit of that. Then we have Tegan Nox who took the pin? I think Shotzi Blackheart took the pin from Dakota Kai. No, Raquel Gonzalez. She did something just like a chokeslam powerbomb, I believe. But Gonzalez looks really strong, and Kai looks like a really good chicken shit heel. It's too early to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I get Diesel Shawn Michaels vibes from these two. They played the Drake Maverick video, and Drake Maverick was also one of the ones who was released this past week. And they're playing it up as in he's like some underdog now in this interim NXT tournament. And if they are booking this to still fire him, that's some bullshit. Like that is some legit grade A bullshit. Let me just go ahead and say that again. If they are booking this angle to have everyone get behind Drake Maverick and still have him lose and still release him, that's gonna be some bullshit in my opinion. I think he's looked fantastic. His man Drake is so good. He's so small. Yes, I get it. They bill him at 140. His Wikipedia page says he's 126 pounds, which is amazing. I'm sitting here like, dude, I'm almost 40 to 50 pounds heavier than him. So there's that. But I am pleased with what I'm seeing from him as a character. And again, if they are the heartless bastards that book this story as if he's some underdog and still have him lose, I think that's going to be some bullshit. They can have him win the tournament and have Jordan Devlin beat him, take the title from him, and then book him as if he's fired, keep him off of television for a while. That'll get massive heat on Jordan Devlin. So let's see what they do with this. I hope they make the right call, but it's WWE. You can never really trust them to do anything. But he dropped the match to Jake Atlas, and let's talk about Jake Atlas and that fucking cartwheel DDT from the top. I've never seen that before. I guess Sean Ross Sapp was saying that he's been using that maneuver on the independent scene. Okay, I believe that 'cause I don't watch too many independents. But good lord, that shit was nasty, and I loved every bit of it. Kushida versus Tony Nese. This was a great match as well. Kushida, Kushida is one of those guys that I mark out for. It's Kushida, Pac, um, Io Shirai, and Kota Ibushi. Those are the four names in professional wrestling, right? And Kofi Kingston too. Those are the five names in professional wrestling right now that I mark the hell out for. Dude gave us an avalanche armbar 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, that popped me like a 10-year-old child. This week, he gives us an avalanche Kimura to the finish. And I'm like, Jesus, this dude is just so fucking good, and I love it. I love it when I see it. We're gonna do I'm gonna begin doing some retro reviews, just kind of looking back at. I'm sorry, Sean, I just stole your name, but we're gonna be looking back at some old matches. I want to do some Kushida recaps and look back at some of his matches too, and I want to talk about the first matches we're gonna review later on in the show as well. But Kushida gets the win over Tony Nese. We got a promo from Scarlett and Killer Cross. I'm not calling him Karrion Cross. I don't care what WWE changes his name to. I'm excited to see these two on television. Not sure when that's going to happen though. Then we saw Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. I think heel Candice is going to run circles around Johnny Gargano. They're talking about how they've always been overlooked and underappreciated since coming to WWE, and I like that angle. I like that they even brought back hints of Io and her turn on Candice, so I think it's going to be fantastic. But like I said, I think Candice is going to run circles around Gargano. What else? What else? What else? We got an Io Shirai segment, another Drake Maverick segment after he lost his match. Mia Yim versus some jobber. I can't remember who that was, but Charlotte gets the win. Or excuse me, Yim gets the win. Charlotte comes out talking shit to Mia Yim, setting up their match for next week. We got a Chelsea Green Robert Stone segment. And then we got Jack Gallagher versus the debuting El Hijo del Fantasma. Fantasma wins with a Samoan driver. This was his debut. He a little bit off, looked like anyone's debut would be on WWE TV, but Fantasma is excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next for him. He was the next target of the backstage Mexican abductions. They picked out. They already got Raul Mendoza. They got Joaquin Wilde. They tried to get Fantasma, but he fights them off, which is a lot of people saying that he's really behind this, which I would be okay with. I love the fact that after he fought him off, he's yelling out, Yo soy de Mexico, like I am from Mexico. You're going to do better than that. Fantastic piece. Then we got the main event, Velveteen Dream and Keith Lee against Undisputed Era. So Damian Priest attacks right at the start of the match, and he hits Keith Lee with the nightstick in the throat. I think they're setting up that title defense maybe next week as well. But he hit Keith Lee in the throat with a nightstick, and that leaves Dream in a 2-on-1 situation. And oddly enough, Dexter Lumis comes out and he sides with Dream, and it's the weirdest thing. So this Dexter Loomis character is being booked as if he's the real version of, like, kind of like the Dexter television show, where he is, I guess, going after heels, and he's been looking at the Undisputed Era for the last 2 weeks, kind of stalking them. And I guess that kind of came out this weekend or this week, because he joins Dream. He stands in as his partner, hits some big offense, and then Dream gets the pin when he hits the elbow drop on Adam Cole. So we'll probably be getting a title shot at some point in time in the near future there. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, I did not watch AEW this past week. I just couldn't get into the show. When I flipped to it a couple times, I didn't see anything that made me want to sit and watch. As much as I love Orange Cassidy, don't care about Jimmy Havoc. Not really too into Sammy Guevara right now, and Wardlow definitely not into Dustin Reynolds. I just didn't want to watch the show. But they did win the ratings again. NXT had won 2 weeks in a row. I think it was like 735, like 632, something like that. Not really sure the exact numbers, but AEW did go back to their winning ways. But I do want to talk about the interesting comments that Kenny Omega had in reference to women's placements on the show. He was talking about his frustrations with their booking, and this is his exact quote. It's the most frustrating and rewarding feeling at the same time. Omega said, "We have a vision for this women's division that I always wanted to have at the forefront. It's like, okay, Kenny, you've got the reins. Do what you can with 5 minutes of TV time. Wait a minute, you've got this huge, expansive roster. You have people chomping at the bit, raring to go. How am I going to introduce all these people with 5 minutes? How am I going to show them? How am I going to show just what makes them special?" He also talked about Britt Baker, and I'm taking these quotes from the piece on Fightful.com. Britt Baker, if you go just based on her reactions, is probably the top heel in the whole company. They are making these little small minuscule opportunities. They are taking these little small minuscule opportunities that we are awarded, and these women are hitting home runs. They succeed. They succeeded with their 1 minute, 2 minute segments, so they get their 5 minutes, and that's going to grow to 6, 7, 8, and 9, and they're going to have their own show one day. Omega said. Now, one of the things that has made AEW a little bit more difficult for me to watch is a lack of diversity. And diversity isn't always about race, but it's, to me, professional wrestling is about difference. I want to see people of color. AEW has a strong, well, no, not strong. AEW definitely has a lot of people of color on their roster. They have the partnership with OEW. They have, women like Riho. They have Nyla Rose. They have Hikaru Shida. They have Swole. They have like people of color on the roster. They have a strong Latino presence with Sammy Guevara, LAX. Which one? Angelico. They have. I think he's Latino. I think. But they have a strong reference there. They do not have a strong black male reference. They don't have a strong African American preference. Period. They just brought in Suge. They have Scorpio Sky. I can't think of any other black male wrestlers they have on the roster. They have Swole. Nyla Rose is biracial. They had the one woman who got smashed by Britt Baker last week. I can't think of any other black women they have on their roster. So when it comes to the women's division, especially, that's why I love the WWE offering, specifically NXT, because there isn't a women's division in the rest of wrestling that's like that right now. If you look at the roster, you can take out the top 10, whoever you would think the top 10 are, and then you can take that whole group out, and you can still use the rest of the roster and still have one of the best women's divisions in the industry. Let me show you exactly what I mean here, because I'm pulling up their roster right now. NXT women. Candice LeRae, Charlotte Flair. Okay, Charlotte, I'm not really going to count. Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Dakota Kai, Io Shirai, Kaden Carter, Mercedes Martinez. I mean, that's basically right there. Mia Yim, Raquel Gonzalez, Rhea Ripley, Santana Garrett. I've had, thoughts about her. Scarlett Bordeaux, Shotzi Blackheart, Tegan Knox, and Xia Li. That's 14 women right there that could be its own show. That doesn't even include the rest of the women that the WWE has on the roster. That's something that makes WWE more interesting to me. While they struggle from a glass ceiling situation when it comes to how high up and down the men and women of color on their roster can go. They do have a strong number of people of color on their roster. Just a couple weeks ago, I was joking about on Twitter where Monday Night Raw, every single match had a person of color in it. Every single one, whether they were winning or losing, every single one had a person of color. And AEW doesn't have that, and it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to watch at this point in time right now. So it was just interesting to me to see those comments by Kenny Omega come out because I think they're very relevant. Because for me personally, their product is suffering from a enjoyable spot because I just can't get behind it as much. So that brings me to some of the other topics I wanted to talk about today. I want to hit on the WWE earnings call, which was earlier today. So as you know, last week they had those massive layoffs, and they've really come under fire for the reason behind them. Clearly, these layoffs came at a time when the world is in a global pandemic. So the people they've released are really going to struggle. Well, not going to struggle to find other work. There's not any other work they can do right now because everything is basically shut down. So they're coming under a lot of rightfully so, criticism for how they did that, especially because they've been hiring a lot of people, kind of stockpiling people just to hurt the other promotions, not even necessarily to use them, like EC3. So there's that. Then it comes out that they did so, and it bolstered their cash reserves that they have on hand to $500 million. Frank Riddick, who's their interim CFO, was talking during the earnings call today, and he said on March 1st, they had $292 million in cash after doing all of the reductions, which include laying off talent, laying off backstage personnel, other employees across the company, making other changes from like moving their offices, etc. They went from $292 million in cash to $500 million. $500 million. They could have done something for these people for a extended period of time with that type of money. But because it's going to give them a savings of $4 million per month. That's that's uh, that's pretty hard there to even listen to. Being someone who I manage a team, I've had to lay people off before. It's not fun, but to do that to so many people and just look at it, and they did it in a way where they used COVID-19 as like a cover, but they didn't have to do that right now, and it's clear as day that they didn't have to do that. And when you listen to the earnings call, and I don't want to say they're in trouble, but you heard the word decline a lot. Just a couple of the highlights I want to talk about from this. I followed it, but I didn't want to go too in depth into this piece. But Vince McMahon said they're going to be doing more mini movies and personality profiles, so stuff like the Boneyard match and stuff like all of the backstage or character segments you saw on NXT yesterday. They're going to be doing more of that type of stuff, which I think is good. Um, they have 2.1 million WWE Network subscribers. Now, somebody asked if that number included the free subscribers. Frank said yes, but they didn't say how many of them are paid. But what they did say was, let me see if I highlighted that note, where they said they have average paid subscribers is 1.46 million, which is down 8% from Q1 of 2019. So you can do some math there and see where they were. Raw viewership is down 16%. USA as a whole, USA Network, is down 29%. On live events, there was a decline of $3.4 million in Q1. They did 49 fewer events in quarter one. Think about that. That's almost it's 90 days in a quarter. They did 49 fewer events. And in reality, all they lost was from March 16th to March 30th or March 31st. Yeah, March 31st. So think about that. In 15 days, that they lost, because that's like really when the shutdowns really kind of started around like March 16th. You can even say they lost all of March. Because what pay-per-view did they do in March? Let me see. Was that Elimination Chamber? So they did the Super Showdown. Yeah, they did Elimination Chamber. They had a crowd for that. Okay, so they had a crowd for Elimination Chamber. Let's just assume they lost that whole month. They said they were down 49, yeah, 49 fewer events in Q1. That's ridiculous. Let's see some other questions that stood out. There was a question about Saudi Arabia and if they'll be going back some point in time this year. Vince said either in November or December. It really kind of depends on what they're allowed to do. But if they miss a show this year, they're just going to tack it on to the back end of the deal. The only other piece, there's two other quotes. So Vince was asked about morale backstage in reference to talent being brought in to perform. This kind of comes on the heels of the, I'll use whistleblower just for lack of a better term, whose statement was taken into consideration during that legal hearing on the city council meeting, I believe, on Monday, where they said that they were being forced to work. So Vince McMahon had a comment where he said, a quote, "Our talent have taken this as a challenge, almost as a duty. They realize people are sitting at home and they are bored. We can entertain like no one else can entertain. They've really risen to the challenge. They are very special people. They love to give." That's an end quote. And that's something to be said. I'm not sure if that's really how everybody feels. They wouldn't say otherwise. Clearly not to him. But it's very telling. I wonder how much of a disconnect is between that quote and how people really feel. So along with that, the only news piece that came out was WWE 2K21 was canceled. And I wonder exactly why. I wonder how much of the issues with WWE 2K20 led to that being canceled. And what's also important is that 2K posted on Twitter something that was very important. They said, let's see, they had a good tweet today that everybody kind of got behind. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I'm not gonna say everybody got behind, but they had a tweet today that I saw in reference to this. Here it goes here. "We will be sharing the details on the future of WWE 2K franchise as well as some exciting news on Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific time." So let's see what that is. Maybe it's a new wrestling game. Maybe it's something different. I've heard that there will be another wrestling game around, but they're not sure what it will be. But it definitely looks pretty interesting to me. Or that's an interesting bit of news because wrestling games are popular. I have Fire Pro Wrestling. I have played a lot of the WWE 2K games. I haven't bought one since 2K18, and they're really going to do something different to make me buy another one because I'm just not interested in that. But that stood out to me. And that was all from the earnings call. I want to turn my eye briefly to talk about the Dark Side of the Ring episode from this week in reference to Dino Bravo. And I will admit, Dino's not a name that I really remember too much of. They showed a match that caught my eye because I remember it. It was Dino Bravo and Earthquake as heels against Hulk Hogan and Tugboat. And I remember that match specifically because that was before Tugboat became a heel and he went on to become Typhoon, and him and Earthquake became Natural Disasters. I remember that specifically, but I remember that match because I think that was around the time when Tugboat turned. But outside of that, I didn't really remember a lot of Dino Bravo, but they had some pretty interesting information about his murder. I mean, he was murdered on March 10th, 1993. He was killed. There was 11 bullets found in his body, 7 in the head, 4 in the body, and there's still no idea on who did it. They talked a little bit about him and the International Wrestling Federation and how that was a big organization in Canada at the time. But the WWE and their practices basically forced him out of business, and Dino ended up working for WWE for an extended period of time. But after that, he ended up falling into a situation where he was involved with Montreal mafia families. And I guess the perception based on the episode was that he was involved in contraband contraband cigarettes being sold, and because they found contraband in $50,000 at his home. And they also talked about a situation where his actions may have led to the seizure of $400,000 worth of contraband cigarettes. And around the same time when he was killed, two other mafia linked individuals were killed within like a 6 month time. Like one guy was killed a couple months before who lived on the same street. And then another guy was killed 4 months after who lived in like two streets over. So yeah, they really talked about that, and they had some interesting quotes in there. So the bounty was in the show, and he had a couple of interesting quotes. He's like, Vince likes to test the boys who stand up to him. That was one quote that stood out to me. He said another one was, when you go to WWF, WWE now, you're nothing but a number. And when you go to WWF, you don't bring an ego. So those are some of his strong quotes there. Jimmy Hart had a good quote too, because he used to manage Dino Bravo. He said, "The wrestler is a Cadillac, and we are the hood. We are the hood that's on the Cadillac." That was a good quote that stood out to me. There's one other from his daughter in reference to the death, and she was like, and she was being asked if she wants to know who did it, and she said that she thinks it's better that the family doesn't know. And she phrased it as in the family would have to deal with all those emotions and have to be upset around that situation again. And I'm looking at it like, maybe they don't want to know because that puts them in some some liability situations where they could be threatened next. So, and they don't really know what that. But that was a pretty interesting show. I always watch Dark Side of the Ring. It's great content. I enjoy it. It really kind of shines a light on a different side of wrestling that you don't really know about, or you kind of know about, but you don't really know about. It's really good watching to me. I think anyone who enjoys wrestling should really watch it. I got to go back and watch the New Jack episode. I watched the Brawl for All episode, and I want to talk about that probably next week or maybe week after. They have the episode where David Schultz slapped the shit out of that reporter. That's going to be the next one. So I'm probably going to watch that one too and talk about that next week. So then the last topic I want to talk about is just kind of a preview where a couple of weeks ago, WWE Network listed their top 10 matches of the 2010s. And I'm going to watch these matches and kind of do some reviews of them because a lot of them I remember, some of them I really don't, but they are in order from 10 to 1. Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston, The Shield versus the Wyatts, CM Punk versus John Cena, Triple H versus Undertaker, Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, Ronda Rousey versus Sasha Banks, Daniel Bryan versus Triple H, Becky versus Charlotte, AJ versus Seth Rollins, and Taker versus HBK. I'm going to go back and watch all those matches and kind of talk about them and why they are important probably starting next week. I'm going to do one match a show over the next 10 weeks. I think it's plenty of time before things get out of control. We may do that as separate content as well. But as always, this is the end of the show. We've gone almost 45 minutes. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my content. I think it's always fantastic that I get people to listen in, and I really appreciate that. My name is Raphael Garcia. You can find me at rgarcia_sports on Instagram and Twitter to catch all that I'm talking about. It's usually professional wrestling, mixed martial arts, sports, everything that's going on. So thank you for that. And we appreciate you. Please subscribe to MMA Ratings on YouTube and subscribe to our channels on Spotify, Anchor, Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and I think that is it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe and don't drink too much.